Hey internet, welcome back to my channel. I am currently in Tokyo. Not that you can really tell, I'm just kind of in the corner of a hotel room. But that's Ginza out there. I'm not sure if you also can tell. And ignore all this stuff in the back. This is all my nook of the hotel. Every time Tobias and I travel, I always find a section of the hotel room to kind of nest in. And this is my section near the window. So I wanted to kind of recap what we did in Sapporo. If you didn't watch my previous Japan vlog, then I will link it down below. Basically, I'm trying something a little different. Well, not different. I used to do this like years ago on my vlog channel where I would just kind of talk about what we've done in the last week or a few days or whatever makes sense, and then just recap it here rather than just trying to cut together a vlog with music and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know what you guys prefer. I just want to try different things and see which one sits better, which one's easier for me, which one people like more. So any and all thoughts are welcome, but like not mean ones. So the last vlog, we were leaving Shinagawa and we were going over to Sapporo. We took a midday flight and flew into Sapporo. I feel like the flight from Tokyo to Sapporo is only like, I don't know, 1 to 2 hours. It's pretty short. It's like a Melbourne to Sydney flight. It's really nothing at all. And I didn't realize how early sun sets. I mean, it made total sense. It's winter. Of course the sun's gonna set early, but I just didn't think about that. And by the time we got out of the train station, it was pitch black. And the other thing that completely caught me off guard was how cold and snowy it was. All stuff I also knew reading about it. I was well aware that the temperature was going to be really low and there was going to be snow, but it's different reading about it and then having it hit you right when you're there. It did make me realize that I, one, really needed my thermals, and two, my shoes were not appropriate for snow. A couple times it was really slippery because the snow had hardened to ice in a lot of areas, so it was quite slippery, and trying to pull heavy luggage bags across snow is not easy. But yeah, it was so surreal initially to see snow in such casual city-like settings. Like, I've seen snow, but it's always been a kind of a more unique setting, like the mountains, or actually mountains. That's pretty much the only place I've seen snow. Oh, I have seen it when I was in Beijing, but when that happened, it was kind of a weird trip. I wasn't really going down the streets and walking or anything like that. It was really just taking from like Great Wall of China to specific spots. So it wasn't really the same as like going down to the local combini and having it snow and ice and everything. So I thought that was a real treat. The next day was actually Christmas Eve, and I decided that I really needed some new gear. I needed some gloves. The gloves I had were not adequate enough, so I got some for my fingers. I also needed something for my head. I figured that with my hair it would be good enough. It was not good enough. Ear muffs was all I really needed because I just needed to make sure that my ears didn't get too cold. And the last thing I really needed was some good winter boots. That evening we actually went to Odori Park. We went there during the day and it was really beautiful snow, and there were all these like fittings, light fittings, but because it was during the day we didn't see anything. Trust me, when you go back at night, it was amazing. Add to that it was actually snowing at the same time, and it was magical. It was the first time in my life that I'd seen Christmas when it was in winter and snowing, and it was also the first time I finally understood why so many people say winter and Christmas go together, because it really just kind of went together really well. It was really magical. I've never experienced that in my entire life, and I feel like most people who live in the southern hemisphere probably won't have experienced that. It's definitely an experience worth having, because I don't think I'm ever going to forget that feeling where I just feel like, yeah, this is amazing. It was just a beautiful park. Next day was Christmas, and I already, like, a lot of the stuff I already researched, but it's always different when you experience it. Christmas Day is not a public holiday in Japan. It is in Australia, so usually everyone gets the day off. But it was business as usual. Despite there being lots of Christmas decoration and everything around Japan, most people, at least in my experience, didn't really acknowledge Christmas Day in itself. Like, no one wished us Merry Christmas, or like I didn't hear people wishing each other Merry Christmas or anything like that. It was just not really an acknowledgement that people give to each other, but they still love the decorations and everything, so you know, go figure. But the highlight for us on Christmas Day was actually visiting this restaurant. I completely forgotten the name now, but it was a restaurant specialized in crab, because one of the things I really wanted to do when I came to Sapporo was to try the hairy crab, because that's kind of like a thing for Sapporo, and this restaurant did not disappoint. I think we tried the hairy crab, snow crab, king crab. It was just like basically dish after dish was a different type of crab cooked in a different way, and it was so good, so good. That's probably our like fancy meal for the entire trip, and I was glad that it was that one. It was really great. This restaurant was, if you do want to check it out, it was rated number 2 in Sapporo for in TripAdvisor, so you can just go visit that. It was on the expensive side, but I think it was definitely worth the experience. And I'm just glad to have finally tried hairy crab. That was something that I just really wanted to know what it tasted like. Even though I feel like I might have eaten it before now, because I'm no food connoisseur, so don't come for me, but I feel like a lot of crabs taste the same. I don't know, I'm sure they all taste different in fine ways, and people who love, like, I love seafood, I can eat mountains of it, but I don't have a fine taste for it, if that makes sense. So I'm sure that people that have a fine taste for it can tell the difference. This is the line outside KFC. It's actually not that bad.
Chicken!
We are having strawberry, I guess strawberry cake. It's not really cheesecake. I keep calling it strawberry cheesecake.
I think it's sponge cake.
It's strawberry sponge cake, which is kind of like one of the traditions they have in Japan. You eat KFC and then you have strawberry cake as dessert. And then we had Boxing Day. Again, that's a public holiday in Australia, and basically that is our Black Friday in Australia, where everyone goes to the shops to get the deals. No such day exists in Japan. I don't even think anyone even said Boxing Day. But then again, is it just me? Because I felt like Boxing Day was a uniquely Australia thing. Then I realized the UK did it, and that made sense because we probably stole it from the UK. But is it an American thing as well? Like, I don't know if Americans celebrate Boxing Day given that they have Black Friday. I don't know. Anyways, it was definitely not a thing in Japan. We decided to go to Moiwa Yama that day, which otherwise known as Mount Moiwa, which is just one of the highest points, I suppose, for Sapporo, and kind of gives you a beautiful view of Sapporo as a whole. We decided to head up a little later in the afternoon because Tobias wanted to see what it was like when the city lit up. And I was surprised at how big Sapporo was. Like, I had no idea. When we got to the top, there were definitely, like, on one side lots of mountains, but the city is huge. And for the whole time, like, our whole trip was spent really on just this one major area. But there's so much more to see. I'm sure it's all residential, but so much more to see. I will say though, if you do try to visit Moiwa Yama, then do keep in mind that it is a little different from a lot of other sightseeing cable car places. Basically, I just don't know if it's popular enough, so maybe that's the reason, but you don't get your own little like cable car capsule to be in. You might, like, the ones I've been in they're smaller and there's seats around, and so they put enough people so that everyone gets a seat and then you all get window space and you can all go up and down. This is not the case. This is basically a massive cable car, and they shove you in like sardines for the first trip up. Like, there's 2 of them. This is the larger one at the bottom, so from the base of the mountain to about the midpoint. So if you are unlucky like me initially, I was stuck right in the middle. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see over anyone because I'm not very tall either, so it was basically just standing there waiting for my 5 minutes to be up so I could get out and breathe again. And then you transfer to a smaller cable car, which is kind of a similar-ish experience. It's a little bit more seating, but it's a little smaller, but basically they shove you in with everyone as well. So the cable car experiences aren't really great. But once you get to the top, you get to see all of Sapporo, so that was really great. We waited until sunset so we could see the night lights, and fortunately on the way down I was much luckier to get a window position so I could see all of Sapporo in its glory, and it looked beautiful, just amazing. The next day we went to Nikko Ichiban, which is basically like the Tsuzuki fish markets but the Sapporo version, and it is much smaller. Like, the Tsuzuki fish markets here in Tokyo are quite big. It's almost kind of like a mini suburb in its own, but the Sapporo one was probably like a small block of shops, and that was pretty much it. But I actually really loved it. I was amazed at some of the seafood they have there. I think I had this weird fear that I was going to see whale. Like, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm just like, I just don't want to see whale meat, because that just, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm a hypocrite for saying I don't want to see whale meat, but I'll see any other meat. But I don't know, it just bugs me, so I just don't want to see it. I didn't see it. I saw a lot of crabs. which I love crabs, so it made me happy. But now I feel a bit weird saying that whale meat made me sad, but crab meat doesn't make me sad. There were so many crabs, guys. But yeah, it was really amazing to see all the seafood just laid out. We did end up having lunch there, and I always feel like the food in these fish markets, yes, they're fresh, but they're very expensive as well. They really mark up the price for these tourists. So keep that in mind if you ever do decide to go. We did get to try uni, which for some reason I had not tried before. We finally tried it, and according to Tobias, it is way better in Japan in the fish markets than they are. Yeah, Tobias is right there. He's being quiet at the moment.
I am nodding.
Yeah, he's nodding. They're way better in Japan than they are back in Melbourne, because he did try one in Melbourne, Sakura Kaiten, one of the conveyor belt sushi restaurants, and he hated it. Tasted gross. So yeah, worth keeping that in mind if you do come to the fish markets and you want to try uni. Maybe try it there, because it was actually really nice. And the next day was our last day in Sapporo, which made me really sad, because I started getting really attached to being there. Yes, it was freezing every day, yes, it was snowing every day, and I actually really started to love that. I didn't like it when my fingers wanted to freeze off, but I liked everything else about the snow. It was very magical. So on our last day, we decided to visit a park that was really close to us. It was the Nakajima Koen, or Nakajima Park. It was just kind of south of the main area of Sapporo, and there was actually in the middle of it a frozen lake, which I thought that was quite amazing. I thought maybe we were going to be able to like walk over it or skate over it, but I don't think it's frozen enough for that. But it's covered in snow. When we saw these two adorable snowmen sitting next to each other, and actually we saw quite a few snowmen throughout the park. People were just randomly building them. I saw like two women building a small set on a seat. It was so cute. So I really loved the walk through the park. Yeah, we saw a lot of Shiba Inu, like the dogs, and that just made me want to get a dog, even though I really shouldn't get a dog. I've got 5 cats and they would all murder me in my sleep if I introduced a dog into the household, so I just don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. But I just love animals. So, and yeah, we were frozen by the end of that walk, but it was such a nice walk. I really want to come back to Sapporo, maybe in spring or summer, just to kind of see what it looks like without all the snow, because now in my head, to me, Sapporo is just a snowy place. That's all I have in my head. So yeah, that was our entire trip to Sapporo. I loved it so much. I'm so glad we decided to spend pretty much a full week there. Initially when I was planning this trip, I wasn't sure if we were spending a few days there, a few days here, and then move around a bit more, but we decided to just kind of nest in and spend longer periods of time at fewer places, and I'm so glad we did that. I mean, honestly, I felt like I could, I don't know, like even spend 2 weeks there, but maybe rent a car and drive around. There was a family that Tobias met that was basically driving around Hokkaido, and I thought that was such a great idea. We've never driven in Japan before, and I feel like Hokkaido would be a good place to do it. It's a lot more slower paced. There's not as many people, but you still get all the conveniences that you would in Tokyo. Just like maybe not all the conveniences, but a lot of conveniences of a big city. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the vlog. Thank you so much for watching. This is Celina reporting from Tokyo. Back to you, internet.